Big premiere last night, Sarah Palin's Alaska. Here are some of what you missed if you didn't stay up late enough to watch.
It was amazing to watch. This mom of grizzly, brown bear really, protecting her cubs and saying, you know, nobody's going to mess with my cubs. Nobody's going to mess with the future of the species. Todd and his buddies got out there and built a 14-foot fence and is very thankful for that. By the way, I thought that was a good example. What we just did, others could look at and say, oh, this is what we need to do to secure our nation's border. Alaska, America's last frontier.
You can see Russia from here, almost.
Well, we solved the immigration problem.
We did.
We solved some species differentiation there, and by the end, we saw Russia.
That's right. I mean, really, you can't ask for more from a potential presidential candidate than that. All right, well, joining us now from the Bloomberg D.C. offices is Peter Cook. Oh, actually, you're outside at the Capitol. Exciting.
Beautiful day here on Capitol Hill.
It is beautiful, but you are indeed Bloomberg's Washington, D.C. correspondent. Peter, I want to start off and talk to you for a second then about the Charlie Rangel case, of course, getting the most attention today. What's going to happen next?
Well, it remains to be seen right now, but we've had just a fascinating display so far this morning. Charlie Rangel threatening to bolt from his own hearing, of course, considering the charges against him, the 13 violations of House ethics rules. He did ultimately leave. The hearing continued, and then we heard basically the chief prosecutor in this case, the chief counsel of the House Ethics Committee, say that he doesn't believe that Mr. Rangel was actually engaged in corruption or was trying to essentially boost his own finances, but he was sloppy with his work, and he did violate House ethics rules. Remains to be seen what the committee here, this subcommittee, is going to do with it, but it has been a Charlie Rangel show from start to finish, even though he's not even in the room at this point. The question at the end of the day, is this going to be an admonishment of Charlie Rangel, something less than a censure or expulsion from the House of Representatives? And that's the question right now. Don't bet against Charlie Rangel at this point.
Indeed. And Peter, I want to ask you about the big issue coming up in the lame duck session, the extension of the Bush tax cuts. There's a clear signal from the White House that they're looking to temporarily extend all of the Bush tax cuts. But this was a pretty clear campaign principle that President Obama ran against. He's going to have some problems with his own party if he does that.
He is going to have some problems on his left if he agrees to extend even temporarily. And there's a cost here as well. Extending just for a single year alone all the Bush tax cuts, $200 billion added to the deficit. That raises issues with economists as well, those worried about the deficit commission. So he does have to worry about his left flank. But at this particular moment in time with the economy doing what it is, there is a justification, some people would say, to extending them all simply because the question marks in the economy right now.
Let's talk about the other issue that came up this week, the Debt and Deficit Commission. A lot of talk over the weekend about some of the measures they'd like to take. But realistically, what do you think Congress or the president is going to do with this information?
Well, it's amazing what impact that deficit commission plan has already had. I think a lot of people thought this thing would go straight to the shelf, the dustbin of history. But the way they surprised both Democrats and Republicans, Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson, with their plan, I think has given this plan a little bit more traction. No, many of these ideas are too politically radioactive to be adopted here on Capitol Hill. But it is a starting point for the conversation. And right now, every other deficit proposal will be judged against what they've put forward. And many of them will fall short. This is a sweeping proposal. Gores every single ox here on Capitol Hill. So many important spending plans in here would be cut. And right now, again, 14 of 18 commission members backing this. Unlikely, but many of these ideas will gain some traction over the next little bit.
And Peter, in our last 30 seconds here, one ox that the Tea Party would like to gore is earmarks. And they're going to get an opportunity this week, although it rubs up against some people in the Republican establishment, including Mitch McConnell, if Tea Partiers get their way here.
Well, this Senate vote is going to be fascinating tomorrow. There are a lot of senators, as you said, Mitch McConnell among them, and say, listen, we don't want to cede this power to the executive branch. This is our chance to put a stamp on federal spending. Again, the Tea Partiers have made their case against it, and this is the first battle line between establishment Republicans, those new Tea Party members. We'll see how the vote goes in the Senate tomorrow.
All right, and any handicapping here on how many votes we think Heath Schuler will be able to get against Nancy Pelosi?
I'm going to say fewer fewer votes, more votes than he got touchdowns as a Redskin. How about that?
Ooh, that's
a good one.
Going out on a limb, of course, he wasn't that good at a Redskin, as we all know. Peter Cook from Bloomberg News joining us from the center of the action, Capitol Hill, where there's all those new members in town. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
All right, that does it for this edition of Top Line. It's twitter.com/Rick Klein, twitter.com/Amy E. Walter. Amy, you just magically appeared in the second half of the program.
Crazy?
That was really cool.
But not without my mug.